You can't really get the whole picture of the recording scene that was going on here during that time without realizing that we had a studio here. Leon had a studio at the lake. He had a studio in his house. JJ had his little thing down the street, and things were happening in them all the time, but not necessarily interacting a lot.
I knew Denny Cordell from London. I would follow, I worked at a music publishers there called Essex Music, and they published a lot of American music. Denny came on board as a producer, so I knew him from there, and then he moved to America. He moved to LA and had, I guess, set up Shelter Records with Leon. I didn't really know much about that. But I was settled in Electra. I'd worked there for maybe 15 months, and Denny's secretary, who was my roommate, asked me if I would be interested in moving to Tulsa to run the office for the studio they were opening, and I didn't even know where Tulsa was. I mean, I knew Gene Pitney, I knew the song, I know everybody says that, but I mean, that's as corny as it was. I mean, that's all I knew, nothing. So I said, sure, I'll give it a try. Still moving forward, I felt like in my early 20s, you can always return at that age. You don't think anything's a problem. So I moved here in July of 1972, and it was so bloody hot. I was from England, temperate climate. I'd lived a few months in LA. It was just awful. And I think the first person I met was Kirk.
My name is Kirk Bressler. This is my wife, Debra, who I met here at the church studio and married 45 years ago. And I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in Northern Virginia. Decided I wanted to do something else with my life. I became a Marine for 4 years. I was an aircraft electrician on a Marine attack aircraft, which is where my electrical background is from. After I got out, 4 years of that, 67 through 70, came out here to go to school. At that time, there was Spartan Aeronautics was a school out here that I wanted to get my what's called the A&P license, or airframes and power plants license, and that was my intent. And while doing that, I met Buddy Jones by renting a place from him, and then here we are.
When I got here, it was cold. It was I think a day before a huge ice storm that hit here. You remember that ice storm?
I've been through a few.
It was horrible. I wasn't used to that. And the steps, of course, are steep out here, and they had so much ice on them that we try to come up the steps and we end up slipping and
sliding
back down the bottom and start
we were
back
trying to bring stuff in. I may have been here a week when that happened, but Leon had bought all of the houses up along 3rd Street here, and I lived they put me in the first one. The office, as Julie said, was next door to the right of the studio here. A lot of the stuff we did, we were so busy in there that we weren't paying.
Well, we certainly didn't take enough pictures.
We really didn't. Nobody was taking pictures.
Because we were just we were just workers.
Yeah.
I think I was the only person with a camera, too.
I mean, I think we took family pictures. Oh, let's take a picture at this party or whatever, and that was just that.
That's about it.
Well, Willie did come into the studio, but not so much to record. Willie Nelson did come into the studio and came around here a lot, but just mostly as a friend of Leon, that they work, partners on a lot of projects, I think. And Willie was more instrumental in getting him to do his country and western album, Hank Wilson's Back, and got him kind of going that kind of direction he wanted him to do stuff, which is really some really good songs on that album.
But you guys,
this summer-
I never saw Gary Busey down here. Did you guys say?
He came
I
over
thought
to,
so.
he would
Gary
come
came in
over
a
to the
time or two.
office a lot, actually. Gary would come to the office.
He came in at nights
quite a
on,
bit.
I know one particular night that we were downstairs doing the filming of that cooking show down in the basement down here and recording it, and then they had the cameras all set up around it, the video cameras, and we had a great meal. I mean, they cooked it there in the kitchen, and about the time everybody's getting ready to sit down and eat and get set spread up, the back door down the basement opens up, and here's Gailard and Gary Busey came rolling in after they'd done that show
Mazeppa.
for Mazeppa that night, and it turned into a crazy party. I mean, they had
I think I went home. I don't
food
remember.
flying and just more. I couldn't stop. I mean, you just can't stop laughing. It's just continual. How did they do that kind of stuff? And it just cracked everybody up, and like all recording really stopped it. You know, it didn't get.
And this was way before Busey's motorcycle accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
When they were.
He was hilarious.
Yeah.
He used to come in a lot late at night. What would happen, we'd be doing something, it wouldn't be anything necessarily major or anything. We'd be down here recording a lot of local stuff, and Leon would just pop in late at night. He had a driver that sort of ran errands and everything for him, Ricky Hill, is that?
Oh, Ricky, yeah.
And he'd send Ricky out for a case of beer, and they would sit in the control room and just watch what was going on out here and make comments. And Gary would show up sometimes, and there were several times that he had us just, the recording stopped because he had everybody just flat in the floor.
You couldn't do anything.
Yeah,
you
the whole work, serious work stopped. Especially if you put the two of them together, because they carry on the whole routine.
What really happened here was a lot of people came through here that went on to do amazing things because of here.
Did you know that Tom Petty,
Exactly.
Simon Millamundi discovered Tom Petty and brought him to the studio.
As
here.
Mudcrutch.
I don't know, yeah, as Mudcrutch, that's right.
Phoebe Snow
Phoebe
was
Snow.
here forever.
And I was telling her, I picked Phoebe Snow up hitchhiking. On 3rd Street, 3rd and Harvard. I just turned on, because I was living over at 7th and Harvard at the time. I was driving my old 1939 four-door
Plymouth?
Dodge. The Dodge.
Oh, Dodge.
Named George. The car's name was George. And I saw these two hippies, and it wasn't winter, but they were wearing these parka coats, big carton, and they had their guitars under, guitar cases. And so I just pulled over and stopped and said, "You guys need a ride someplace?" And they said, "Yeah, you know where the 3rd Street Church Studio is?" I said, yeah, come on, I'll give you a ride. So they piled into the back, put their guitars in the floorboard in the back. Of course, that had the suicide doors on it, and they piled in the back there, and I'm driving down there chatting with them, finding out where they're coming from, New York, and what they were doing. And they said, "Yeah, well, we hitchhiked all the way here." And I said, "You hitchhiked all the way here to come here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm supposed to do a recording session here at the studio." So I drove them up out front and parked them in the front out here and came in and said, "Yeah, come on in." It's like, "Yeah, I work here." It's like one other small story. It's like, picked them up in the middle of Tulsa, hitchhiking over here, and happened to be the ones that brought them right to the location. And
Mary McCreary, who became Leon's wife, came in, and we were doing vocals one morning. I think it was a Saturday morning. It was pretty early, about 10 o'clock, and she was out here on the mic, and I just put up an Elton John remake she was doing of Levon, I think it was. And she was singing, and Leon just happened to stop by and came in the control room and watched her for a little while and asked who it was.
LUV.
And he came in at a break and started talking to her, and expected the session to start up again any minute, and instead they went out the front door, and the rest was history there.
I think it's a great tribute to what Leon tried to create here with the music talent that's in the area here, and the local groups are incredible musicians around here, and if we can keep that local vibe going here in town, and as being developed and utilize this location for that, I would see a great tribute to this church and to Leon's memory.